Now, we haven't had a ton to talk about of note or really materiality within the aluminum world, but I think we've got something that's going to be very interesting to a lot of our listeners right now. In the last week, and this should sound fairly similar to maybe 2017, 2018 type commentary. Russia announced in the last week that they are going to implement, or they're looking to implement, for the August through December of 2021 time period, an export tax of 15% plus $250 to $54 per metric ton. Russia, for those who don't know, represents 20% of the world's aluminum production. So they're big players. When they sneeze, the rest of the world hears it. There's a belief out in the marketplace that this could have a very swift and robust impact to Midwest premiums and premiums of ingot all around the world. Here within North America, we're most predominantly interested in the Midwest premium. And there are some forecasts out there that are suggesting that if this tariff were to go into place, which there's still risk that it may not, but if it were to fully go into place, and if those exporters fully try and pass on that tax to its consumers, we could see Midwest premiums go above 50 cents. The expectation is that it could go as high as 57 cents per pound on just the Midwest premium. That, for those who don't know, we're already at record highs right around 28 cents. That would basically be a doubling of a record price to that new price. Now, there are a lot of questions about whether or not this is going to come to fruition. Ultimately, Russia is trying to put a lid on their own inflation that they're seeing domestically. They're trying to say, we're seeing prices going to the moon. Let's do everything we can to actually stymie exports of product that we need. Let's put a tax in place. And if people still want to buy it, then they can, and the government collects its money. There are questions about, one, whether or not it actually gets implemented, which I think is why we haven't seen as robust of a move in price as one might think you would. And I think the other aspect is there is a belief that the exporters might actually eat a portion of that tax. So that's really the $1 million question, is if the tax does go into place, how much of that pass-through is going to occur to the end consumer? If it's all of it, then we could see pretty robust, swift moves in Midwest premiums higher. If the exporters say, you know what, we can't pass this through, we'll wreck the export market, then you could actually see Midwest premiums relatively mundane. All things being equal, a lot of the analysis I've seen suggests that we shouldn't see too much of an impact to the London Metal Exchange price. That's kind of a net neutral impact to the LME. That really all of this impact is going to be centered around Midwest premiums. And when we look at the same data that we did with steel on the futures basis, so a month ago, a week ago, and then today, Midwest premiums have spiked up. It's not massive. It's about 10%, so 2 to 3 cents basically. It's a far cry from that 26 to 27 type cent move that some of the forecasters, talking heads, analysts are talking about, but it has moved up. So it is worth noting. There has been some commentary that's basically saying some in the industry believe that the market is underestimating how big of an impact this could potentially be. If you look at just this futures market, they're saying it's going to be relatively muted. We will see. I don't have a great answer as to what policy, tax policy within Russia is going to be. But I do think it's definitely something we have to keep an eye on, because as we remember back in late 2017, 2018, I drew in this horizontal line because, no coincidence, London Metal Exchange prices are actually right back to those levels that we saw when the export ban was put in place against Russia. Basically, all the sanctions were put in place against Russia. You can see that when that happened, anytime you touch Russian aluminum, because they're such a big player, the gyrations and the volatility that exists in the market can be pretty robust. And I mean, at that point in time, you saw LME prices go from about 87 cents all the way up to $1.15, pretty much overnight. Now, it reversed course almost as quickly, but we could see some volatility here in the coming days, weeks, as this gets absorbed in the market, and as we get closer and closer to that August date, because as I mentioned, that's when the export tax is expected to go into effect.